Welcome to the program. I'm Mark Imperial. This segment's being brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals get their books done to educate consumers, grow their businesses, and to leave a legacy. This is a series of spotlights on remarkable business intermediaries from across the country. Joining me on this segment is Paul Spradling. He's the founder of Pacific Advisors. Paul, welcome to the show.
Hi, welcome. Thanks, Mark.
Paul, tell us a little bit about your work and tell us specifically who are the types of clients that you specialize in helping?
Yeah, so we are an M&A firm or a boutique investment bank. We help people exit. Anyone who wants an exit, mostly people looking to retire or have a large liquidity event. So our target audience is people who have been in the business, in businesses with $1 million in EBITDA, which is net profits, basically, all the way up to $15 million in EBITDA. So the lower middle market. So we help them, we assist them with the exit process in all sectors. I have individual specialists in every sector, healthcare, defense and aerospace, manufacturing. We personally, myself and my business partner, Nick, focus a lot on the manufacturing. We just have a little bit of that background, printing and packaging, you name it. For everything, we have usually an industry expert. We don't do a lot of tech, etc. We just do, cash flow positive businesses, good old, blue collar working type jobs. And so, yeah, that's mostly what we do. And that's what does well. And our buyers are all private equity firms. We work with a handful of strong private equity firms who are pretty loyal and stick together.
These founders, when it comes time to selling their business, they've been really great at growth, but do they really know where to start when it comes to selling a business?
No, most of the time they don't. A lot of the times it's they approach us and they're like, hey, I Google sell my business and, you guys showed up, or we approach them, our team of salespeople approaches them, or they see some of our marketing. So yeah, they don't know anything. From square one, they start asking us lots of questions, but we point in places, whatever it's taxation, here's some CPAs, how's the legal gonna work, here's some lawyers, the financial, we take care of all of that. We work with their team.
As you mentioned, people always Google and try to find that information, but there must be a mixed bag of misinformation out there too. What are some of the biggest myths or misconceptions that you hear floating around out there?
Well, I think one of the biggest myths and misconceptions is that, every business is sellable. It's not that liquid. It's one of the hard things. Your business has to be a real business. Just you and your wife and kids, sending packages from your garage is not really a sellable business at that time, at least not for a good multiple. So that's one of the big misconceptions. We get approached a lot by smaller businesses that read, we manufacture custom cups. And there is a custom cup manufacturer that sold for 100 million. Here's the article. I'm like, yeah, well, you make 1,000 cups a week. This manufacturer has 10 facilities in 5 different countries. So that's a big misconception that every business is sellable. There is a certain growth pattern and size where it's much easier to sell. You can sell a small business. It's just you're not going to get the same multiple as the one article you read just because you're in the same industry.
We're coming out of a pandemic now, so that's triggered a lot of people to say, hey, I think it's time to sell. I don't know if I could deal with this anymore. But they're also wondering, is this a good time to sell? What's the opportunity been like, and what's the market been like in your area?
Extremely healthy, very strong. Depends on the business, of course. Restaurant, QA businesses, etc., are been a little bit challenging. Food and beverage, hospitality, but manufacturing, e-commerce, most other businesses have skyrocketed the multiples. That's how we sell the businesses, on a multiple of EBITDA. So the multiples have grown quite a bit. There's a lot of money on the sidelines. The large private equity firms got PPP, they got new investors, they piled money because they didn't buy anything in 2020, etc. So they have a lot of dry powder to put out there and acquire things. So that since it's a competitive market, they're willing to pay slightly more than they were 2 years ago.
I read that over 50% or maybe even as high as 80% of businesses that go on the market end up unsold. What causes that breakdown? Why are they so ill prepared, or what causes the breakdown that makes a business not sell? And how could you avoid that?
Yeah, so that was one of the challenges we tried to tackle when we created our firm. So we started out in the buyer side as a family office acquiring businesses. And when we were there, we saw there was a huge void in the market with, the approach of some other brokers may have. It was more of here is the link, take a look at it. Or a lot of people try to sell it on their own and they don't know how to sell it. They don't know how to organize the finances and they don't know who to target. So how do we solve that? We put an approach that we had learned as a buyer and we create packages on how we would like the stuff presented as a buyer. So that's kind of how we focused it. We put better financial packages, and that's mostly the time. It's just not that much information, and the seller doesn't even know where to get that information. Even if a sophisticated buyer inquires them, they don't really know how to put that together. So a lot of times they just put them online and they don't pay any attention and they think it's just magical. The phone's going to ring and someone's going to write them a check.
Fascinating. Paul, what inspired you to get into this field and help other folks sell their businesses? How did you get started?
Yeah, so I started my career. I started my career in real estate and doing real estate transactions, learning on the real estate transaction. And there is, for example, I started looking at some real estate plays like car washes, etc., which is a business with a real estate component. So I was saying, hey, look, the business makes $100,000. You can buy the business for $300,000. The real estate makes $50,000, but you got to pay $1 million for it. So there was like, hey, but what if you combine them, real estate and business? So based on that, I started becoming very curious on the business side. And as I mentioned, we worked for a family office and we were on the buy side. And we're like, okay, let's diversify because it's more cash flow. So, real estate or other industries or stocks or bonds or anything else that you can invest. Yes, it's less risk, of course. I accept that. But the cash flow is what you're seeking, a job, a purpose. Buying a business is the best way to make a lot of cash flow. So,
Paul, before I ask you my last question, is there anything that I didn't think to ask you that you feel is important to share with a business owner considering selling in today's economy?
yeah, very important that a lot of people don't realize. If you want to get top dollar for your company, realize that if you want to retire in 3 years, you should start the selling process today, because whoever buys your company is going to require you to stay 1, 2, even 3 years to help run the company as an employee, train the new CEO, train the new person, and they'll be on earnout as well. Sometimes they just don't. You hear this flashy number, we're going to give you $10 million. Well, it's $7 million in cash and $3 million promised over a couple of years. So timing is important. So if you're thinking about selling your business today, if you want to retire today, 2-3 years from now, you should start doing it today. So it's just not, I'm done, I sold it. So that's a very important thing.
Sage advice. Paul, for folks listening who realize they need to get started on this and get it in order, and if they would like to speak with you, how do they find you, connect with you, and learn more?
Yeah, so they can go to our website, pacificadvisors.com, and just look at there. Our website has a lot of resources. You can go by industry, search niche industry, manufacturing. It'll tell you some metrics. Our website is super information driven. My business partner is a college professor, so he likes to put a lot of information in there for research. And as well, our phone numbers are there. Our office line's always open, and just call us, and we'll guide you.
This has been terrific, Paul. I really appreciate you taking the time to share with my audience today, and I wish you continued success for you and for all of your clients.
Thank you. Same with
That
you.
was Paul Spradling, the founder of Pacific Advisors. And this segment's been brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals get their books done to educate consumers, grow their practices, and to leave a legacy. That's all for now. I'm Mark Imperial, and thanks for joining me.